The little alien girl pleaded, "Save my sister." And the human swore he would. Rain fell in heavy sheets over the alien bazaar, turning the dusty ground into thick mud. Neon lights flickered through the storm, throwing strange colors across the crowded streets. Daniel pulled the hood of his coat tighter and kept walking. He had no reason to stop, no reason to get involved in anything today. His only plan was to trade his goods and leave this strange city behind. Then he felt it, a light tug on his sleeve, so small he almost ignored it. He turned and saw her. Ah, little alien girl, no older than 9 by human standards. Her skin was pale green, mottled with darker spots, and her big black eyes were wide with fear. She was shaking from the cold rain. Her thin clothes clung to her tiny frame. "Please, mighty human," she said, her voice trembling so much he had to lean in to hear. "Save my sister." Daniel frowned. He glanced around, but no one else seemed to notice the girl. The crowd moved past them like a river, traders shouting, guards barking orders, all too busy to care. "Where's your family?" he asked. "They're gone," she whispered. "Slavers took my sister this morning. They're taking her to the spaceport now." The word slavers made Daniel's jaw tighten. He had seen their kind before, greedy, cruel, and dangerous. They didn't care if you were human, alien, or anything in between. If they could sell you, you were cargo. "I can't pay you," the girl said quickly. "I have nothing. But if you don't help, she will be gone forever." Daniel looked toward the skyport, barely visible through the rain and rising steam. He could walk away. He could pretend he never heard her. But something in the girl's voice, in her eyes, made him feel as if turning his back would haunt him forever. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lyra," she said, clutching his sleeve tighter. He nodded once. "All right, Lyra, I'll help you." The relief on her face was instant. But it didn't last. She glanced over her shoulder nervously. Daniel followed her gaze. A tall figure in a dark coat stood at the edge of the market, unmoving. The rain dripped from the figure's hood, hiding its face, but Daniel felt the weight of its stare. "Do you know him?" Daniel asked. Lyra shook her head. "He's been following me since I ran from the slavers' den." Daniel didn't like that, not one bit. He motioned for her to stay close and started moving through the crowd. Weaving between stalls and carts, the smell of fried food mixed with the metallic temps of rain. Voices rose and fell in dozens of alien languages, but Daniel kept his eyes sharp. Every few seconds, he checked behind them. The dark figure was still there, always the same distance away. Lyra led him to a narrow side street or the market. Noise faded. "The slaver ship," she said, pointing down the long road. "It's in Dock 9. We have to hurry. It leaves soon." Daniel quickened his pace. His boots splashed through puddles as they pushed forward. Then, without warning, the figure from before stepped into their path, up close. Daniel could see it was an alien bounty hunter, tall and broad, with pale skin marked by scars. His eyes glowed faintly under the hood. His voice was low and rough. "Leave the girl, human. She's marked. She'll bring nothing but death to you." Daniel moved slightly in front of Lyra. "Not going to happen. You don't understand," her said. "Her sister isn't just a slave. She's the warlord's prize. You won't make it out alive if you try to take her back." "I'll take my chances," Daniel said, his tone hard. The bounty hunter studied him for a moment, then stepped aside slowly. "Then your death is on your own head," he muttered, disappearing into the shadows. Lyra tugged at Daniel's coat. "Please. We have to keep going." They ran the rest of the way to the edge of the market. The storm grew worse, wind whipping at their clothes. The spaceport loomed ahead, massive docking towers lit by blinking red beacons. Daniel could see the slaver ship's dark hull, glistening with rain, preparing for launch, but between them and Dock 9 stood a line of armed guards. Daniel crouched behind a crate, scanning the area. Lyra's breathing was quick and shallow. Her small hands clenched the edge of his coat like a lifeline. "Stay here," Daniel said. "If things go bad, run back to the market and hide. I'm just not leaving you," she said, voice barely more than a whisper. Daniel looked at her, saw the fear and the fierce determination in her eyes. He had only just met her. But something about this small alien girl made him feel as though he'd known her forever. As though protecting her was the only thing that mattered. He took a deep breath, rain dripping from his hood. His mind was already working on a plan. It was dangerous, maybe impossible, but he had given his word, and in Daniel's life, a promise. With something he never broke, somewhere beyond those guards, Lyra's sister was waiting. Terrified and alone, time was running out. Daniel tightened his grip on the blaster at his side. The storm roared overhead, and he stepped out from behind the crate, ready to face whatever came next, because no matter what it took, he was going to save her. Rain still poured over the alien city as Daniel kept Lyra close, weaving between cargo, stacks, and dim alleyways. He knew they couldn't just walk up to the guards and demand the girl back. Slavers didn't give up their prizes without blood. And Daniel wasn't ready to start a fight in the middle of a spaceport with no way out. Lyra was shivering, not only from the cold, but from fear. Her eyes darted to every shadow, every sound. As though the bounty hunter might appear again, Daniel found a narrow service path running along the outer wall of the port. The air smelled of oil and burnt fuel. Machinery hissed and groaned all around them. He crouched low and moved forward, listening for voices. The slaver's ship was close now, but when they reached the corner and looked, the landing pad was empty. The ship was gone. Lyra's small gasp broke the silence. "They took her," she whispered, her voice breaking. "She's gone." Daniel scanned the area, seeing fresh scorch marks on the pad where the engines had burned. That meant the ship had launched not long ago. He grabbed the COM device from his pocket and tried to tap into port logs, but the screen flashed red access denied. He swore under his breath. If he wanted to find that ship, he'd need information the hard way. They moved quickly back toward the lower levels where traders, smugglers, and thieves exchanged whispers for the right price. Daniel approached an old mechanic who was working under a rusted cargo hauler. The man had one cybernetic eye and a grin missing several teeth. Daniel tossed him a small credit chip, shipped from Dock 9. Where did it go? The mechanic chuckled. "Slaver crew." "Yeah, I saw it lift. They're not going far. Not with that storm rolling over the wastelands. My guess hiding in one of the old relay stations till it clears." Lyra stepped forward quickly. "Do you know which one?" The mechanic squinted at her, then shrugged. "Could be the one near the Black Dunes. Nobody goes there now to many raider clans. But slavers love it for quick trades." Daniel didn't like the sound of raider clans, but it was their only lead. He thanked the mechanic and turned to Lyra. "We need transport, and fast." The girl's face lit up with a sudden thought. "I know a way. There's a smuggler in the South Market. He owes my sister a favor. He has a skiff." They hurried through side streets, avoiding the main roads where patrol drones buzzed overhead. The rain had turned to a cold mist, making the neon signs look like smeared paint in the air. Daniel kept his hand near his blaster as they passed through rougher parts of the city in places like this. Desperation smelled stronger than fuel. They found the smuggler's stall hidden behind crates of illegal tech. A short alien with bright yellow skin and a mouthful of sharp teeth grinned when he saw Lyra. "Thought you were dead, little one?" "Not yet." Lyra said firmly. "I need your skiff now." The smuggler's grin faded. "That's trouble you're asking for. Who's after you?" Daniel stepped in. "Slavers, warlord, bounty hunters, pick one." The smuggler's eyes widened slightly, but then he laughed. "Well, at least you're honest." You want the skiff? You take it now and don't bring it back if you're dead." He tossed Daniel a key chip. Minutes later, they were flying low over the outskirts. The skiff's engines coughed with every gust of wind. The city's lights faded behind them as the ground below turned from wet stone to cracked desert. Daniel kept one hand steady on the controls and the other on the tracker he'd rigged to scan for the slaver's engine signature. The reading was faint, but they're heading toward the black dunes. The further they went, the darker the horizon. Became flashes of lightning lit up jagged rock towers in the distance. Lyra sat beside him, gripping the side rail. "If they hurt her," she said, voice trailing off. "They won't," Daniel promised. But in his mind, he knew promises were easier made than kept. A sudden blip on the tracker made him tense. Another craft was trailing them, flying just above the clouds, too far to identify, but close enough to know they weren't alone. Daniel throttled up, the skiff shuddering as the storm winds fought back. Somewhere ahead in that black desert, Lyra's sister was waiting, and somewhere behind, danger was closing in. Daniel didn't know which they'd face first, but he knew one thing: there was no turning back now. The storm over the black dunes roared like a living thing. Sand lashed against the skiff's hull in sharp bursts. The wind howled through the cracked panels, making the entire craft rattle as it skimmed low over the desert floor. Daniel kept his eyes locked on the tracker. The faint signal of the slaver's ship pulsed slowly, dragging them deeper into the wasteland. Lyra sat hunched beside him, her small hands clinging to the rail until her knuckles turned pale. Then a flash of movement cut through the clouds above. A dark craft swooped low before pulling up sharply. Its shape was long and narrow, built for speed, Daniel knew without a doubt it was the bounty hunter, the same tall figure from the market. He was still following them, and this time he wasn't keeping his distance. The bounty hunter's craft dived again, coming close enough for Daniel to see the glow of its forward cannons. Daniel twisted the skiff hard to the left, the desert rushing past in a blur. The cannons fired, sending two bursts of blue plasma that exploded in the sand just meters from their path. Lyra cried out, but Daniel steadied the controls, keeping low and weaving through sharp ridges that broke the wind for them. Finally, the bounty hunter pulled ahead, dropping his ship into their path. He didn't fire again. Instead, the "Come on Daniel's" dash crackled to life. The bounty hunter's voice was rough, almost bored. "This is your last chance. Human, turn around. Walk away before the desert takes you." The girl's sister is already gone. Daniel grabbed the "Come. I swore I'd save her." "Nothing you say changes that." A long pause followed. Then the hunter's voice came again. Quieter this time. "You think this is about a simple rescue. Her sister has been chosen for the warlord's hunt. That means she's already marked for death. No one comes back from that. No one." "Then I'll be the first," Daniel said, ending the channel. The bounty hunter's craft stayed still for a moment, almost like he was deciding something. Then it veered sharply away, disappearing into the storm. Daniel didn't relax. He knew the hunter wasn't gone, only waiting. The dunes ahead rose high, their peaks lost in the swirling sand. Somewhere in that maze was the relay station the mechanic had mentioned. The tracker's signal grew stronger, pulsing faster. Daniel brought the skiff to a slower crawl, scanning the ridges for any sign of movement. That was when Lyra spotted it, a glint of metal half buried in the slope. They climbed from the skiff, the wind ripping at their clothes. Daniel led the way, blaster ready. The metal structure came into view, an old relay station, its tower broken and its walls corroded. Faint lights glowed inside through narrow slits. The slavers were here. Lyra tugged at Daniel's arm, her voice almost lost to the storm. "We have to hurry. They might move her again." Daniel crouched behind a fallen beam, peering through the gaps. he saw two armed guards pacing near the entrance. Their armor was mismatched, stolen from different mercenary crews. The kind of men who worked for PE and nothing else. Behind them, deeper inside. He caught sight of movement shadows shifting in the dim light, a cage, and someone inside it. Small but moving, his heart beat faster. That had to be Lyra's sister. But getting in without drawing the attention of the guards or whoever else was inside would take more than speed. It would take a distraction. He was already forming a risky plan when a new sound cut through the wind. The low growl of engines, more than one. Daniel glanced over his shoulder and saw a convoy of raider bikes cresting the far dune, heading straight for the station. This changed everything. If the raiders reached the station first, there wouldn't be anyone left alive inside. Daniel turned to Lyra. Stay hidden, no matter what happens. Don't move until I say. She started to protest, but the roar of the raiders' engines drowned her out. Daniel tightened his grip on his blaster and prepared to move, because now, not only was time running out, so was luck. The first of the raider bikes tore across the dunes like streaks of fire. Their engines screamed in the storm, kicking up waves of sand that swallowed the ground behind them. Daniel didn't wait for them to get closer. He sprinted toward the relay station, the wind and grit stinging his face. The guards outside were shouting, pointing at the incoming bikes. They didn't even notice him at first. Lyra pressed herself low behind the fallen beam, her heart hammering. Through the gaps, she saw Daniel dart from shadow to shadow, moving with a speed she didn't expect from a human. Then one guard finally turned his head. His eyes widened and he shouted something, but it was too late. Daniel was already on him. The crack of a fist echoed in the storm as the guard dropped into the sand. The second guard lunged forward, raising his rifle. Daniel grabbed the barrel. Twisting it sideways, the rifle went off with a bright flash, the shot vanishing into the dark sky. Then Daniel drove his shoulder into the man's chest, sending him sprawling against the wall. The guard tried to shout for help, but the roar of the raiders drowned his voice. Inside the relay station, chaos erupted. Slavers scrambled to grab their weapons, yelling orders over the comms. The sound of the approaching raiders was like thunder, getting louder every heartbeat. Daniel slipped inside, keeping low behind a rusted bulkhead. The air was thick with the smell of oil and burnt electronics. In the far corner, lit only by a flickering lamp, was the cage. A small figure sat inside, her wrists bound. Her face turned toward the sound of footsteps. Her eyes widened, glowing faintly in the dim light. Daniel didn't need to ask. He knew. It was Lyra's sister. He moved quickly, keeping his blaster ready. The girl inside looked frightened, but also stubborn. The same sharp defiance he'd seen in Lyra's eyes. "I'm here to get you out," Daniel whispered. Before he could reach her, the walls shook with the impact of the first raider bike slamming into the outer barricade. Screams rose from outside, followed by bursts of gunfire. A slaver at the far end of the room spun toward Daniel. Daniel fired first, the shot taking the man down in a flash of blue light. Another rushed in from the side door. Daniel dove behind a crate as plasma bolts scorched the wall above him. The cage's lock was old but heavy, and without the key, Daniel had only seconds before more armed slavers filled the room. He spotted a metal rod leaning against the wall, grabbed it, and jammed it into the lock. Sparks flew as he forced it open. The metal groaned before finally snapping. "Can you run?" he asked. The girl nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes." He pulled her out just as the door burst open and 3 raiders stormed in. Their armor was painted in jagged black and red, their weapons crude but deadly. For a split second, everyone in the room froze. Slavers and raiders staring at each other. Then the shooting started. Daniel grabbed the girl's hand and pulled her toward the back exit, the air filled with smoke and burning dust. Lyra appeared suddenly in the doorway. her small frame nearly lost in the chaos. She rushed to her sister, hugging her tight before Daniel dragged them both into the storm outside. The raiders' bikes were everywhere now, their engines screaming as they circled the station. Lightning split the sky, throwing shadows across the dunes. Daniel led the girls toward the skiff, dodging blasts of plasma that hissed into the sand around them. One raider cut across their path, aiming his weapon. Daniel didn't hesitate. He tackled the rider clean off the bike, sending them both crashing into the sand. The bike spun away in the wind. Daniel rolled to his feet, dragging the girls behind. The wreckage for cover, the skiff was only 30 meters away, but in the chaos, it felt like a lifetime. Daniel could see its lights through the storm, the only point of hope in the endless dark. Go! He shouted to the girls, run and don't stop. They didn't argue. They ran, vanishing into the swirling sand. Daniel turned back toward the station. Scanning for anyone following, the bounty hunter's craft appeared suddenly through the storm. Hovering low, Daniel's grip tightened on his blaster. Unsure if this meant help or another fight. Either way, the night was far from over. The bounty hunter's craft hovered just above the sand, its dark hull gleaming whenever lightning split the sky. The wind from its engines whipped the dunes into spirals, making it hard to see. Daniel stood between the approaching craft and the skiff where Lyra and her sister were scrambling aboard. His blaster was raised, but his mind raced. If the bounty hunter wanted them dead, they wouldn't have made it this far. That meant he was here for something else. The craft's side hatch opened with a hiss, and the tall figure stepped out, his cloak snapping in the storm wind. He didn't raise a weapon. Instead, his glowing eyes studied Daniel for a long moment before he spoke. You're still alive? That means you're either very lucky or very dangerous. Daniel didn't lower his blaster. And you're still following us? What do you want? The bounty hunter's gaze shifted toward the girls in the skiff. I want you to understand that you've stepped into a fight you can't win. The warlord will come for her, and nothing in this desert will stop him. If you keep her, you'll be hunted until you break. Daniel took a step forward, his voice hard. Then he'll have to try, for the first time. The bounty hunter's expression flickered just a hint of something unreadable, almost respect. Then, without warning, a burst of plasma fire lit up the dunes. Raiders had spotted them, several bikes tearing across the sand. The bounty hunter turned his head, sighed like a man already tired of this fight, and drew his weapon in one smooth motion. Daniel didn't have time to question the sudden change. They moved together without a word. Daniel firing at the lead bikes while the bounty hunter's shots cut down riders with unerring precision. The storm swallowed the noise of their footwork. But the flashes of light painted the scene like a war dream, two men standing against the rush of chaos. One raider broke through the line, charging straight for the skiff. Lyra screamed from the cockpit. Daniel spun and fired, the shot hitting the rider's engine. The bike erupted in flame and tumbled across the sand, scattering burning shards. The bounty hunter finished the last rider with a single, clean shot. Then the desert fell silent again. Except for the wind, the bounty hunter holstered his weapon. His eyes still on Daniel. You bought yourself time. That's all. If you're going after the warlord, you'll need more than courage. You'll need a way into his fortress, and you won't find it alone. Daniel didn't trust him, but he also knew the man wasn't wrong. And what do you get out of helping me? The bounty hunter's lips curled slightly. The warlord owes me blood. Saving the girl will just be part of collecting it. He turned back toward his craft, pausing only to glance at Lyra's sister, who was staring at him with wide, fearful eyes. She looks like her mother. He muttered under his breath. Then he climbed aboard, engines roaring as the craft lifted into the storm. Daniel climbed into the skiff, rainwater dripping from his hood. Lyra and her sister huddled together, their small forms shivering. He took the controls and steered them into the darkness, heading for the far horizon where the warlord's territory began. The fight at the relay station had only been the beginning. What lay ahead would be worse, much worse. But Daniel had made a promise, and the desert had already seen what he would do to keep it. Somewhere beyond the dunes, the warlord was waiting, and Daniel was coming for him. The storm faded as they crossed into the warlord's territory. But the silence that followed was worse. The dunes here were blackened, scorched by old battles, and the wind carried the faint smell of burned metal. In the distance, jagged towers rose from the sand-part fortress, part prison, the warlord's stronghold. Daniel guided the skiff to a halt behind a ridge. The girls huddled under a worn blanket, their eyes fixed on the looming fortress. Lyra's sister whispered, "He'll hurt anyone who tries to take me." Her voice trembled, but there was steel in it too. Daniel crouched in front of her. "Not if we move fast. Not if we make it his last mistake." The bounty hunter's craft appeared out of the haze. Settling beside them, he stepped out without ceremony, carrying a small case. "This will get you inside," he said, flipping it open. Inside were stolen entry codes, a map of the fortress, and a handful of strange metal discs. Daniel picked one up, feeling the weight of it. "Explosives." "Distractions," the bounty hunter replied. "You'll need the guards looking the wrong way when you take her out. Once the hunt starts, there's no turning back." Daniel's jaw tightened. The hunt? The bounty hunter's gaze darkened. The warlord releases captives into his arena traps, beasts armed killers, and hunts them for sport. He doesn't do it to win. He does it to watch them die. Your problem is, the hunt starts tonight. Night fell quickly in the desert. By the time they reached the outer walls, the fortress was alive with noise-cheering crowds, the clang of gates, the rumble of engines inside. The bounty hunter stayed in the shadows, giving Daniel a nod before disappearing into the alleys around the arena. Daniel moved with the workers and traders heading inside, his hood low, the stolen codes clipped to his belt. No one stopped him until he reached the inner gates. Beyond them, the arena stretched like a nightmare. Jagged stone walls and shifting sands under harsh floodlights around the edges. Cages hung from steel beams. And in one of them was Lyra's sister, her eyes wide as she searched the crowd. A horn blared, gates crashed open, and the captives were driven into the killing ground. Daniel's chest tightened as he watched the warlord enter, an enormous alien draped in black armor. His face hidden behind a mask of bone, he raised a massive blade to the crowd's roar. Then he released the hunters. Daniel slipped down a maintenance stairwell. Dropping into the tunnels beneath the arena, the roar of the crowd echoed above, each cheer marking another death. He planted the first of the metal discs on a support column and kept moving, every second burning away his chance. He reached the cage's anchor point just as two hunters cornered Lyra's sister in the arena below. Daniel's fingers worked fast. Breaking the cage lock, the metal gave way, and she clung to him in shock. "Come on," he said, pulling her into the tunnel. The first explosion shook the ground. Smoke and shouts erupted above as Daniel ran. The girl's small hand gripping his, he could hear the warlord's voice bellowing commands, the arena flooding with chaos. They were almost to the outer gate when a shadow blocked the path. The warlord himself stepped into the tunnel, blade in hand. His voice was a low growl. "You think you can steal from me, human?" Daniel's blaster was up before the last word left the warlord's mouth. But he didn't fire yet, because this wasn't just a fight to survive. This was the moment he had been running toward since the rain-soaked market. And the warlord was about to learn what a promise to a little girl really meant. The tunnel stank of oil and blood. The warlord's massive frame filled the space, his blade scraping the ceiling as he moved. The glow from his mask's eye slits locked on Daniel. The sound of the crowd above was a distant roar now, replaced. By the slow, deliberate steps of the hunter closing in on his prey, Lyra's sister clung to Daniel's side, her breath coming in quick bursts. He pushed her gently behind a collapsed beam, keeping his blaster trained on the warlord. "When I say run, you run and don't look back," he whispered. She shook her head fiercely. "I won't leave you." The warlord's voice was a deep rumble that seemed to vibrate in the walls. "You killed my men. You ruined my hunt. And for what? A child you don't even know." Daniel's eyes didn't waver. "Not just a child. She's someone who needs saving. That's all I need to know." The warlord lunged. Faster than something his size should move, Daniel dove aside, the blade slamming into the wall and sending sparks across the tunnel. Daniel fired. But the warlord's armor absorbed most of the hit. The impact pushed him back a step, but it wasn't enough. The bounty hunter's voice suddenly cut through the chaos. From the shadows, "Move." Daniel rolled just as a blast from the hunter's rifle slammed into the warlord's side. The massive alien roared, swinging wildly toward the new threat. Daniel seized the opening, firing 3 precise shots into the gaps in the warlord's armor. Each one hit home, the last sending the giant to one knee. But even wounded, the warlord was deadly. With a final surge, he hurled his blade toward Daniel. It spun through the air. The edge catching the light, Daniel twisted aside, the blade embedding in the wall, inches from Lyra's sister. Her cry cut through Daniel like fire. Rage replaced caution. He charged, slamming his shoulder into the warlord's chest and driving him back. The two crashed into the support beam, where Daniel had planted one of the explosives earlier. The warlord grabbed Daniel by the throat, but Daniel's hand was already on the detonator. "This is for them," he growled, and pressed it. The explosion tore the tunnel apart in a blinding flash. Dust and heat swallowed everything. Daniel hit the ground hard, ears ringing through the haze. He saw the warlord collapse, his mask cracked, the glow in his eyes fading to nothing. Strong hands hauled Daniel to his feet. Was the bounty hunter Lyra's sister ran to him, tears mixing with the grime on her face. Above, the fortress alarms were blaring, the crowd screaming in panic. The bounty hunter jerked his head toward the exit. "Time to disappear before they bury us here." They ran through the smoke and fire, bursting out into the cold desert night. The skiff's engine was already running. Lyra was at the controls, her eyes wide with relief when she saw her sister. The girls embraced, clinging to each other, as if they'd never let go. Daniel climbed aboard, his muscles aching. The bounty hunter stayed behind, his craft waiting in the shadows. "We'll meet again, human," he said, almost like a promise. Then he was gone into the dunes. As the skiff sped away, the fortress became a shrinking glow on the horizon. Lyra's sister leaned against Daniel, her voice soft but sure. "You saved me." Daniel looked out at the endless night, the storm clouds breaking to reveal a scatter of stars. "I made a promise," he said quietly, "and I keep my promises." The desert wind carried them home, leaving the warlord's empire behind in flames, but Daniel knew there would be other battles, other pleas in the rain, and he would be there to answer them every single time.